Let's call the meeting to order. Going to have a roll call.
Ms. Cooper Payton is excused. Ms. Harold is excused. Ms. Hetland? Present. Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Here. Ms. Orcherton is excused. Mr. Patterson is excused. Ms. Salmon?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Here. Okay. Next is the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Did anybody have any questions or comments on those notes? Okay. If not, I move that we approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you're seconding. She's seconding. And we all approve. Okay, good enough.
Got to sneak that in.
Okay. This time we're going to do things in a little bit different order. Staff report's going to start.
I'm giving a report a little later too, but this was just your June staff report.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the staff report for June 2018 for the Public Arts Commission. I'm going to start by saying that our Urbana Arts Grant Program 2018 cycle includes 35 funded projects in the categories of individual, group, nonprofit, and festival, many of whom are underway. We've decided to include some pictures of events that have already taken place in just this first month of the grant cycle. So we have pictures here of some of the first of a series of chainsaw carving events, some from Urbana Pops Orchestra, some from Asia Fest, the Beyond Alternative Symposium, the Artist Mentors Program at Dr. Williams School, and a number of others. But this is some of what's already taken place in just this first month of the grant program, and that's very exciting. I also want to mention that we have a new initiative, and it's a collaboration between the City of Urbana's Public Arts Program and the Independent Media Center as a continuation of Open Scene. And Brian's here with me, maybe talk about that too. But Open Scene, Open Mic is a series of open mic nights that we're hoping to host in the downtown area at various locations, really privileging the outdoors as much as possible during these summer months. But they will not only invite youth and adult stakeholders that were a part of the National Endowment of the Arts sponsored Open Scene project through our collaboration, but also invite new collaborators in as hosts, as accompanied musicians, or as guest performers. And these open mics, we've been having a number of meetings with downtown venues and hope to have a calendar to present pretty soon. But those will be beginning on July 11th. The first one will be at the Cunningham Township's new community garden, and so we're excited about that. That's a Wednesday, and it'll be from 5 to 7, so we invite you all to come out.
Oh, where is the garden? Just for
Yes,
people who
it's
aren't
just
aware of it.
next door to Cunningham Township. So an intern at the Cunningham Township decided to take that on as a community project. So they have a new garden, had a picnic recently, and we decided this might be actually a great place for some programming. It even gets some shade around that time of day, so it'd be a nice place. So we're going to test that out, and we hope you all come out. I also want to mention our Art Now for the month of May features Cynthia Oliver. She's a local dance artist and choreographer whose work explores contemporary dance, feminism, Black popular culture, and expressive performances of Africans in the diaspora. This episode will appear every Monday this month at 6:30 with reruns Tuesday at 11 p.m. and are available, of course, on YouTube. Our July Art Now episode will feature local poet Jim O'Brien. You may recognize Jim from Poets on Tap at Sip Yard, where you can kind of get a poem designed just for you. Artist of the Corridor, that's up on display, is Ways of Seeing by Durango Mendoza. This is up here at the City of Urbana building and, of course, again at the Urbana Free Library. Ways of Seeing explores his work in both photography and assemblage, which he refers to his sculpture work as assemblage work. He's going to be offering a sculpture workshop ahead of his closing reception. For those of you who came out to his opening, I want to thank you for being there. That was on Tuesday, May 15th, here at the City Building. But he will offer a sculpture workshop to community members 12 and up, or younger with an adult helper at the Urbana Free Library from 2 to 3:30 on June 30th. And it's by registration only. Folks can register right on the Urbana Free Library's website. The workshop will be followed by his closing reception, same day, just a half hour later from 4 to 5 p.m. in the Lewis Auditorium in the lower level. Those who create assemblage pieces are invited to have them on display for that closing reception as well. And he'll give an artist talk, a brief demonstration, and we'll have refreshments and a chance to talk to him one-on-one. So that's one thing that's exciting, and I have the photo here of Durango and also the 2 flyers about the sculpture workshop and his artist talk later that evening. The next artist that will be on display is Chris Evans, and he's going to be showing a series of drawings and paintings entitled Scenes of Urbana Downtown. Our art at the market this most recent Saturday, though it wasn't without some tears in the form of rain, featured Desafinado and the Weiskamp screen printing. And our next art at the market features Jean-René Beliquita and Bonamui, and he's actually a guest in residence at the Robert E. Brown World Music Center and Cranert right now, which is really exciting for the fall. And he's also been part of a number of programs, both here in town in the downtown, but also on campus. And we're also going to have Papel Picado workshop with La Casa and staff from the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies as the arts workshop accompanying that. Jean-René Beliquita does a mixture of African hymns and gospel music and a rumba, so I'm really excited to have him out. It'll be something a little different for the market. And then this upcoming Sunday, we have the Young Artist Studios Petite Painters Workshop. This is the next in the series that we've had going on with the Urbana Free Library's Children's Department as an arts education initiative for youth. The May 20th event featured Nika Lux with a bookbinding workshop called The Imagination Station. And this next one, of course, will be a young painters workshop where young people are invited to create their own masterpiece. This was done it was done as an all-ages event at the library not too long ago and was extremely well attended. So we have put a registration up for this workshop to maybe contain a little bit the amount of people that are there. But we're really excited about that, and that's coming up on Sunday. I also want to mention that the one after that will feature watercolor resist paintings, which is when we use crayons or wax or pastels to create images, and then the watercolor will resist, of course, those areas. And that'll be done with local artist Camilla Gawaki, and that'll be our next one on July 15th. We also have our performance in the park coming up, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, with Illinois Shakespeare Festival. This is through their Theater for Young Audiences program series, and we're one of a number of locations that this production is happening. And it sort of imagines that William Shakespeare comes into sort of in a dreamlike way to Lincoln when he's making difficult decisions in life, and is able to kind of talk to him about what it's like to come from humble beginnings and think creatively about change in the world. So these are 2 programs that will happen, but this one is July 5th from 10 to 11 a.m. in Carl Park. So we say meet at the Lincoln statue for the play that's about Lincoln. And we are encouraging attendees to pack a picnic, blankets, or camping chairs and enjoy a performance. It is, of course, free and open to the public. Next, I want to mention the Urbana Sculpture Project. As you all know, the Urbana Public Arts Program partners with Public Art League to seek artists to display sculptures in our community. The deadline for submission was closed on June 1st, and we have a selection jury that will be meeting on June 14th. Any questions should be directed to the Public Art League, but we're really excited about some new sculptures for the Urbana Sculpture Project, and I'll have more to report on that at the next meeting. I also want to mention the Urbana Art Expo working group will begin to convene to plan this next year's expo. The dates are September 14th to 16th, 2018. Those interested in volunteering to be part of the working group are encouraged to get in touch with me as the Public Arts Coordinator. And I want to give a brief social media marketing report. Our Facebook page has increased by 11 followers since our last meeting for a total of 1,759. Twitter experiences an increase of 7 followers, so a kind of humble increase. But our Instagram page increased by 47 since last month. And I still attribute this to learning that I can use Instagram also on my phone for my personal use and for the Public Arts Program, because it has meant that we are making many more updates. So I'm very excited about that. And last but not least, I just want to encourage public arts commissioners to get involved with the Urbana Arts Program's upcoming events. And anyone interested in volunteering from the public who may be listening, we do have our ongoing volunteer program available. And my hope is in the fall to have a kind of introductory orientation for all incoming volunteers and really work to build that program. So I hope that also some of the commissioners may be able to assist in that.
Great.
And that's it.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, next we're going to have a grant presentation by Brian Dolinar. Hi,
Good
Brian.
afternoon. How are you all doing? I'm Brian Dolinar from the Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center. I'm the program director there. I was just looking up Instagram and found the Urbana Arts Program, so thanks for the tip.
Yay!
One more member. First, I wanted to announce a couple things if I can.
Sure.
One, we have a call for artists out. We are designing a new sign for the front of the IMC, and half of our M had knocked down over the winter, and the second half just knocked down yesterday during the storm.
Oh, gee.
And so we are seeking approval through the Historic Preservation Commission, and we have a call for artists out, so we're looking for artists to design our new sign with us. So if folks can contact me, Brian, at the IMC. Our number is 344-8820 if there are any artists out there interested in designing our new sign. Second, we have Girls Rock. I'm excited to announce Girls Rock is taking place at the IMC this week. This is women musicians in town training young girls how to play bass, guitar, drum, and sing. And so they're a great bunch of about a dozen young girls who are there as part of the project. And it's a summer camp going all this week long. They've been doing a number of fundraisers around town. And we're excited to see some of the culminating camp event for the summer, the first annual one. They are doing, and if you're by the post office this week, during the daytime, you can stick your head in and see young girls up on the stage playing. Saturday night, they're having their final show that is going to be at the Cowboy Monkey at 7 o'clock. It starts on Saturday night. And Girls Rock, the new band, or bands that come out of this week's activities will be performing, as well as some local bands that are supporting the project. So that is Saturday night at Cowboy Monkey, Girls Rock. But I'm here to present on the community music studio project, and we have a PowerPoint here. Rachel, how do I find that PowerPoint here? Yeah. Is it ready to go? I see one. I see.
Did you bring it, or did you?
I emailed it to you.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go grab it.
Okay. Yeah. Anything we can do in the interim?
That's a good question. Do you sing?
You don't need to sing, no.
Are there cellos in that group?
Oh, no. Impromptu lecture about the arts and U.S. history. No. Otherwise, at the Independent Media Center this summer, we have workshops that are going on. We have a series that's supported by the arts program with Sakani Reed. She's our artist in residence at the IMC, and she has a couple workshops that she's doing in July and August, and we'll start circulating those dates. We had to push it back a couple weeks. She had a death in the family. And then in September, we're going to have a culminating art showcase with Sakani. We also have a workshop July 14th with Kofi Bazell-Smith. He does manga art. This is like Japanese cartoon work. And he has a workshop on July 14th, a Saturday at 2 o'clock. And then he is doing a book release for his new manga book, which will be September 7th, a Saturday, Friday night. I believe that's first Friday night for September that's going on. Kofi, it's K-O-F-I, Bazell-Smith. And Kofi is the son of Sam Smith and Amani Bazell around town, who's now sort of coming into his own as an artist and doing this manga, Japanese artwork. I was in Chicago last week, and my friends told me about a Charles White exhibit. Charles White is a 1930s black muralist from Chicago, maybe one of the best-known black muralists of the 20th century, and they're having a show of his work at the Art Institute that opened up June 8th and 9th. It should be up. It should be up, Charles White. So we have PowerPoint coming. I can keep... in my former life, I was a teacher, so I can kind of drone on and on. Here we
Here
go.
you are.
Where did you teach?
I taught at the university. I taught I taught in the history department for a year. I taught a class on the Black Chicago Renaissance, and Charles White was one of the best muralists from that period. Black muralist. Charles White show, Art Institute. It's going on now. It's really good. So here we are. Switch gears. Okay. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay, here we go. Okay, so there's our old sign that we're replacing, the 3 letters, the red IMC letters. We had a series promoting a community music studio. Was to be a video and music recording studio for local youth. You know, there's not too many big studios in town. You know, you got to go to Chicago to find any big, professional music studio. People have home music studios now that anybody can have with a computer and their bedroom. But we're trying to formalize this and have something available to the wider community. A lot of kids can't afford. You know, we've had kids who came to our NEA-funded Open Scene project that was mentioned, and they're kids who learn how to be DJs and make beats, but they don't have their own studio. They can't afford a $3,000 computer. They can't afford the software. So we're trying to set up a community space where folks, especially folks who can't afford it, working class youth, who can get access to this kind of equipment. We have a space at the IMC in the basement for the studio, and a dedicated space with a separate booth area for recording. We've been slow in getting the equipment. We've had some things volunteered, offered, but we've been slow in getting the money for a new computer, which we need. So given that didn't come through, we were trying to figure out how to continue the project, given that we had the grant awarded to us. So what we have done the last year is to try to create a buzz around the community music studio, which I think more people have heard about now. People are coming to us and asking about it. People are coming to us wanting to donate to it. And so much of the funding went towards really sort of promoting the idea of a community music studio and bringing some talent together. So we have people on deck who can help us build it. Derek Lindsay, who has been awarded a grant, and we have Ibrahim Udrago, who I'll mention. He's a videographer. We have other people in town who are willing to help us put it together, but we're lacking the equipment right now, so we're in a fundraising stage to get the funding for the equipment. And that's one thing the grant couldn't provide, was for the actual equipment itself. So that's kind of the missing piece that we're still trying to fill in here. So we've been doing a series of events, and we still have workshops that we did. We did 3 workshops and then 2 major benefit shows. And so these were all free events available to the public. The first one was called Are You Afraid of the Dark? It was a Halloween event, a kind of black Halloween event with a group called Black, BLQK, which stands for Black Love Queens and Kings. It's headed by Wolf Thomas, who's a local artist. And we had artists locally who were a part of it. Skylar Chisholm is a young black woman artist from campus who showed her artwork. Sonny Toure is a local musician and rapper who performed, and a couple other people. It was a catered event for Halloween night. And that was well attended and lots of fun. We did another, these 2 events sort of bookended what we did over the course of the year. And on March 30th, we did a Good Vibes Only IMC showcase with some 20-plus acts that night, and it was all hosted by a group in town called the Champagne Cypher Series. It's headed by a guy named Rob Kay. They have an event coming up at the Canopy Club called Make Champaign Great Again. It's a hip-hop show, kind of spoofing on the current moment. And so and I think really out of our activities at the IMC, our hip-hop shows in particular, it's really helped to shape and mold and birth a whole new hip-hop scene really in the last couple of years. And Champagne Cypher is one of the key people. So some of the names you might recognize on the bill here, New Souls has been playing a lot around town. That's Mike Ingram and Celia Cole and Brandon and folks. They just played over at the Co-op a couple weeks ago. There was a comedy act called the Two Kadeems, or now known as the Kadeem's Hard Kool-Aid Act. They're a kind of Black Lives Matter comedy routine that's been playing around town. That's a lot of fun. Alexandria Hockey, Black Maj, who's a new act, and a few others on here. So that was a lot of fun. A whole list of bands, and all the musicians got paid a little something, anywhere from $10 to $50, who played on the bill that night. There was live artists sketching. And so then we had 3 workshops. One was with DJ Reno and Jamie Gatson, or J-Tune, or Gatson as he goes by now. Jamie has been working with the IMC for a long time. Jamie's a local rapper. He was close friends with Kewan Carrington, who was killed by the Champaign police in 2009. Kewan then sort of turned the tragedy into a rap career, and now he's headed to Atlanta. He just won a contest to go to Atlanta to go perform. And Jamie's been working with us for ever since 2009. And his career's been growing. And he's been to the East Coast a few times to perform. But this is Jamie on stage doing with jazz hands. And then Reno here is sitting at the table. Reno's a local DJ who sort of explained the process. Production and different styles, and the both of them sort of talked about how you, as amateurs, you get into the industry and sort of make a name for yourself and create a certain brand and promote social media. And Derek Lindsay here is in the photo as well, who showed up. We had about half a dozen people for this workshop. We had another workshop here with Derek Lindsay up in his studio. Derek, the last year, has had a studio at the IMC on the 2nd floor. Where he's been doing training and workshops and promoting himself around town. And we had another half a dozen people at the workshop that Derek hosted. Derek's best known around town he played with Prince. He went to school up in Minneapolis and was invited to go to Paisley Park and record with Prince. But he's from Champaign. And so Derek has been in town working with us over the last year or two. In the crowd here is Sam Smith in the middle in the blue shirt from Cranert. Robert King, our board president, on the stool there. And that's a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance to hear Derek, he just loves to tell stories about hanging out with Prince at all hours of the night, taking a break and riding around bicycles at Paisley Park and all kinds of stories. We had a video workshop then with Ibrahim Udrago. Ibrahim also has a studio at the IMC, and this project has also helped us to bring local artists, especially black artists, to the IMC and to Urbana, where they've been renting studio space from us, and we've been opening up these collaborations with them. Ibrahim is from Burkina Faso. This is, I come to find out, the Hollywood of Africa, and he's here in Urbana. So he lives just down the street, and he hosted a workshop with it had about a dozen people, very, very well attended, and a really diverse group. There's a couple Muslim women. Lucia Maldonado from the Urbana Schools was there. Sam Smith was there again, and a few other new faces. And Ibrahim brought all his big camera equipment out and did a workshop. We're doing another workshop with Ibrahim in July, and as well as a documentary film festival. He's going to show his own film as well as a few others. And this opened up all kinds of new collaborations and brought artists into the IMC. I just wanted to mention this ongoing collaboration with Jamie Gatson. He did a video shoot at the IMC for song he did called Bulletproof. So the IMC, to quote Mayor Marlin, continues to be a center of creativity in Urbana and really a place where people can plant their seeds and watch them grow. Out of the project, these were all free events, but we invited people to throw in a little money into the bucket for the music studio idea. And so we raised $660 through our fundraising for the project. Out of sort of creating a buzz, we also had a woman call from Champaign. Her husband had passed away and left behind a bunch of guitar equipment. So he donated a couple small amps that we gave to Girls Rock, and then a couple large, what they call Jimi Hendrix Marshall stacks. And each one of them, two of them, is worth about $1,000 a piece. So there's another couple $1,000s that we had to repair one of the pieces and resell to generate a couple $1,000s more for the music studio. So we're hoping with another little fundraising push we can get to a point where we can buy a computer and have equipment and get this music studio opened. So it's done a lot to raise awareness about the IMC, our programs, invite artists into the space, and really achieve our goal at the IMC of diversifying the music, culture, and art scene in Urbana. So I think that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, thanks. Anybody have questions or comments?
You've been a busy guy.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, your description of the work with youngsters reminds me that Naomi and I saw a short documentary that I probably can't even think about without tearing up a little bit. It's called Joe's Violin. Do people know this?
Oh, you need to watch it.
And do you know this movie?
I don't know this
No? Okay, so what it documents is that WQXR, the classical music station, public station in New York, put out a call for people to donate musical instruments that they no longer used, which would in turn be distributed for the use of school children. And one of the donors was a Holocaust survivor who, in his 90s, couldn't play the violin anymore. And so it was about him, his gift, and the young person who received it. So I guess that I was, you know, your discussion of work with young people made me think that it would be great to have such an initiative here in Urbana or Champaign-Urbana. And maybe we could facilitate that, or probably on a per capita basis, we have as many, you know, no longer actively used instruments as New York does, and probably a proportional need, you know, especially for youngsters whose families can't readily afford them. So so that's not a comment on your work directly, but it's a thought that was inspired by your work.
Hey, can I make
Go
a
ahead.
comment? There are some groups actually that do that on an ongoing basis. The Music Sorority, Sigma Alpha Iota at the university, and then of course schools are always looking for help. I remember Mo Better Jazz and the after-school music program. I got a dealer in Chicago to donate a cello and a bow to their program. So there are, but it'd be nice if groups maybe would get together and collaborate together so we can get a bigger program going, a bigger pool.
Yeah. So maybe we can.
Or get one of the music
It's
stores.
it's easy for the board to say things that staff has to follow up on, but maybe if we could somehow catalyze that, I think that would really be terrific, and it would just, you know, it would be just good for everybody. I mean, obviously the best thing it'll be for will be the emotional satisfaction of the people who give, and the real, you know, pleasure and benefit of the people who receive, but also I think it will, raise the profile of arts.
Well, thank you. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
your
We just believe
presentation.
if we have the vision and see it, we can make it happen. So thanks for your
Yeah,
support
sure.
from the Arts Commission for this project and for everything we do with IMC. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, next is going to be the visioning activity, What's in Your Square?
Good afternoon.
Hi. Welcome.
I'm Chris. I work in the planning division. My
Marcus.
colleagues. So we are doing a visioning exercise that probably some of you might have heard about or maybe participated in already. We're doing this with many community groups throughout Urbana, as well as each of the public boards and commissions in the city as well. So Public Arts is going to have their turn right now. Why don't we go through with it? You're probably familiar with some of the history of Lincoln Square. When it was built as one of the first indoor public malls, encompasses a large portion of downtown Urbana. It's a partnership between the mall, which is privately owned, and the city, which owns the parking spaces around the mall, to just kind of have a public visioning to see what we think might be the best use with lots of the space that we have, and just how to make it better, how to improve it. So some of that just involves, I think, getting the input from a lot of different stakeholders. That's from Vine Street on the west, Illinois Street towards the north, Race Street towards the east, and then south, just a little above Main Street, including the Landmark Hotel and the area just near the post office and the IMC. Just another example of where the boundaries are that we're considering. Part of the area that is not under consideration is the courthouse, as well as the county building. Those aren't going anywhere anytime soon, as well as the church and the apartment, that older apartment building just to the west. Those are going to remain for the indefinite future. The first exercise we'd like to do is I'm going to give each of you a sheet of paper, and we'll give each a pen. We just want you to take a couple minutes to think about, in your minds, just sort of go beyond Urbana, or it could be in Urbana, but we want you to think about a great place. Some place that you think is great. It might be public, it might be private, it might be personal, or a place that you're out often, a place that you've only visited once or twice in your life. Just something that feels special and personable, wherever in the world that might be. So while you're thinking about that place, think about a few things, such as what makes this place great, what's going on around you, what's happening, as well as what you can hear and see and smell, some of the sensory perceptions that you're getting while you're in this great place. So why don't you take just 1 or 2 minutes to write that place and a few of those qualities down, and we'll come back.
Next to number 1.
Yes. If you have to do 2, it's not going to break the exercise, but yeah, it is.
You want us to be creative, right?
True.
is presumably places we've been to recently, right?
Or it could be a place that you were visited a long time ago, too.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
It's not limited by time necessarily.
These things could have changed in a certain amount of years.
That's true, but also think about what was special about it at that time, and you know,
Right.
I think the only qualifier is that it actually existed versus being imaginary.
And they should be urban, I guess. They should be places that,
Not necessarily.
not necessarily.
It doesn't.
Their suggestions.
I don't think it has to be limited to just urban. It's just kind of thinking about what makes a place special, be it urban or rural, suburban, wherever. Why don't you take a few seconds to finish up what you're writing down? So with that, usually when we're in a large group, I sample just a few opinions as to what people wrote down, but since just a few of you, did each person care to share what they wrote down and a few of the qualities that came with that place, starting with you, Eric?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought in this direction at all, but I realized that I really like city centers in Europe. And I can't tell you if I like the center in Krakow or Prague or wherever really better than another place, but the whole way that those spaces are proportioned relative to the surrounding buildings and relative to people.
Okay. Sounds good. Barbara, did you care to?
Well, I'm just going to add something then, because I was thinking only domestically.
Okay.
I just listed a bunch of places that I've either been to recently or where I grew up, and places that I've traveled to that I would find something. Whenever I'm on my travels, if I see something, I grab a bunch of brochures. I just handed Rachel a bunch of them from downtown Ojai, California, for example. Irvine, California is a new area. Winter Park, Florida, where I grew up, downtown Winter Park, Florida, very arts and culturally active. Of course, I'm going back pre-Disney. I actually was at the opening of Disney World. as a young person. Silver Spring, Maryland, the downtown Fountain area particularly. I like that area because I see how many people it attracts to the downtown area. I remember San Francisco a lot when my husband sang with San Francisco Opera. And of course, when you mentioned Europe, I went Vienna and Eisenstadt, Austria. Those are places that I have good memories from and would be willing to return to.
Okay. Patricia?
Yeah. I was thinking of Grant Park in Chicago, particularly the part where the Pritzker Music Center is. And I think just because there's so much there, I mean, and there's so many people, I think more than anything else, I like that I can see such a vast number of different people doing different things all the time. And of course, there's interesting architecture, there's interesting sculpture that changes over time. I think those are the things that I like about it.
Okay. Sarah?
So I immediately thought of what serves as the downtown area in Ashland, Oregon, which is a very arts, I mean, the entire town revolves around the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And this little area is a very strange little area. It's really green, it's really calm, it's very eclectic. It's not like the straight lines like we think of in the Midwest. It's winding. It's not necessarily all covered, but you go from covered spaces to uncovered spaces that are protected, like from wind and rain. It's very pedestrian focused. On the other hand, though you can see that it is intended to look eclectic and natural, it also feels very intentional, as if it was designed to be this way and to cause people to slow down and interact. It also has this really interesting mix of larger spaces, not like concert hall sizes, but wide spaces in the paths. In the park that is also part of this area, but also like little narrow paths where you have to walk one behind the other. And that mixing of large to small, it also makes the space feel bigger, even though it's just really this little bitty downtown area.
Okay. And lastly?
I thought of downtown Minneapolis, specifically in the summer, because it's really cold in the winter. But I liked visiting there, and like all of the shops and restaurants and stuff were, like all the restaurants had like patio seating, and there was tons of things to do outside, and it was also really pedestrian friendly. Like when I went, they were like tearing out streets to turn it into a ped mall, and like really bike friendly too. And I thought that could be translated well to here in Urbana.
Okay.
Okay, Marcus gave me a sheet, so I'm allowed to share, right?
Quickly.
Do I have a green light?
Yeah.
Okay, because I sat through one of these already and I started thinking, but a different thing came to mind today. I also was kind of drawn to European cities. I spent a lot of high school in Europe, and I was thinking back to like the Christkindl market in Essen, Germany, which of course is like really specific. It's Christmas market time, like everyone's out, everyone's shopping, there's music, there's, they've set up an entire structure that is temporary, but there's a plaza to do it in. And there's a lot of interesting night lighting in the plaza as well. I think a lot about lighting in a way that it makes a space inviting to me. I thought of one of my favorite places, which is the Museumplatz in Vienna, Austria, where it's just like this plaza with like 5 museums. And they have my favorite art museum of all the ones I visited in Europe, the Contemporary Art Museum. Oh my gosh, with like the lomography photography thing in the bottom. It was just really wonderful. But that whole area, there's always cafes open, and there's not a focus in necessarily retail, but there's a focus in experiencing arts and culture in the area. And people just gather, and there's not even a lot of like outdoor furniture or things to necessarily sit on. It's really a plaza. So people are walking around, but it's just such a gathering place at the same time. And then I thought of Santa Fe, New Mexico City Center, but that's more like calm, kind of quiet. Maybe there's somebody strumming their guitar out at night. There's like outdoor lights, trees. It's really beautiful. But it's, again, the European style of like, there's a square city and then everything's around it. And so there really is it's sort of the plaza is a gathering space. Right. I'm seeing as a theme. And lastly, which is very different, I put down downtown Berlin. which is really quite different. It felt very much like a mecca of lots of different cultures. There's lots of people outside. It achieves this balance of like family friendly during the day, but definitely has a nightlife. And I would like to see more of a nightlife in Urbana. So those are the things that I think excite me.
Okay, so now that we've got your creative juices flowing, we'd like you to apply that to the Lincoln Square. The next exercise is called the Square Cloud. And what I'd like for you to do is under 2A, to put down several words, single words, that what kind of feeling or atmosphere that you would like to experience at the square. Could be inside, could be outside. We take all of these surveys and exercises back and analyze them and process them. What you tell me here is going to go into a word cloud. So things that come out of people's suggestions will then be added into this. So when you fill out your survey, make sure you write nice and legibly so that we can add it into our Square Cloud. So we're looking for feelings or atmosphere that you would like to experience there at the square. Could be inside, could be outside, alone with other people. And you've got 6 lines, I think. We'll give you a minute to do that. Let's just bring it here. Okay, so in a little round table here, we'll start with Rachel. Give me 2 of your words.
Culturally diverse and intergenerational.
Okay, culturally diverse and intergenerational. Okay, Eric?
Stimulating, but not threatening.
Okay, Barbara?
I said, that's the problem, friendly gathering space
Okay,
is one of many. I wrote a lot, but you'll see.
okay. Tricia?
I was close to what he was saying, and I didn't know how else to put this together, calm but vibrant. It's
Okay.
like interesting, it's not just, but on the other hand, it's a safe place. It feels welcoming,
Okay.
yeah.
Sarah?
Welcoming and calm.
Okay. Jessica?
I had inviting and chill.
Okay, all right.
See?
So the second half of this is, now that we know how you'd like to feel while you're there, what are some things that you would like to do or experience at the square? Could be inside, could be outside, could be alone, could be with other folks. Not necessarily looking for particular shops or whatever, or stores, but think big. What you would like to do or experience at the square. Yes, that goes in B. I'll give you another minute for that. Give you a few more seconds to finish up. Okay, pencils down. Jessica, you're on the hot seat first. Give me a couple. Okay. Sarah?
Gather, drink/eat /shop.
Okay.
But also attend performances.
Okay. Patricia?
I think I just said in general, art activities, and that could be dance, music, opportunities to see art or create art. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm pretty much in agreement with all of that. Of course, I'm being a professional musician, I like hearing live music.
Okay.
You know, maybe a good walking area too, where you can walk in this area and have good access to maybe business services as well.
Okay. Good. Okay. We're getting some diversity.
Well,
Eric?
nothing original. Eat, drink, experience performances.
Okay. Well, we are at the Public Arts Commission. Okay, I should have seen this coming. Rachel?
All the same. The only thing that I think might be a little different was similar to like walking and maybe some green space, having a space that feels really inclusive for families. So like ideally my kid can do something really fun that entertains him, and I can also be entertained and not just like sitting watching him be entertained.
Right.
Which I think a lot of parents go through. So it would, I like the idea of like walking space for even folks who may want to get their walk in, otherwise they won't. Or,
Right.
dogs can come and be there.
Good ideas.
I was going to mention, I feel strongly that it'd be cool if we could have something that in the winter would be inside, so people could have a green space inside where they could walk or meet. Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
You know, I do have another thought that came to me. Health-related enterprises, but non-medical,
Okay.
like Pilates, massage therapy, et cetera.
All right. Very good ideas. So, Barbara?
I was just going to add on to that. My husband's been walking at the mall for the last 12 years. He likes to walk. The temperature's always the same. Parking's easy, and he likes to get out. And so he really utilizes the space, and then he visits the co-op afterwards to reward himself for doing a good job.
Yeah. Well, do you want to lead the map?
Okay. So for the last exercise, we're going to pull out a map that I'm going to ask you to come from your chairs and towards the center of the.
This is the one we saw at the beginning of the presentation?
You can bring your sheets with you if you like. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Leave there, bringing.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and have Rachel report on the arts and culture research she's done on programs in other communities.
Hello. That was fun.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really just sharing to kind of get us all thinking about our charge to kind of explore arts and culture and how that would, what it would, if anything, it would transform the way we think about public arts right now as our commission. So what's been happening for me is that I've been spending a lot of time looking at what other arts and culture programs tend to look like in different municipalities across the United States, and both this size town, but also bigger spaces, bigger cities, and smaller cities, and really seeing what's out there. I've pulled together some little tidbits of information, and then I'm going to share two resources that I think would be great for us all to maybe dive into before our next commission meeting. But let's just get started. First and foremost, I really liked this quote, and this comes from an arts and culture grassroots organization. It says, art and culture can build empathy, create a sense of belonging, and activate the social imagination and civic agency needed to make real change. I think that for us, it'll be interesting to think about what is transformative about arts and culture and putting those two things together. One of the things that I wanted to talk about a little later comes from well, it's an Illinois toolkit, and it's for devising arts and culture planning. And it's really designed for cities or arts agencies. And I'm going to encourage all of us to read this. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a little bit. But they have lots of models for thinking through things. And for instance, what do we need in order to prepare for planning, both assessment and then implementation of a program or a commission? And how do cities plan for arts and culture? I took a lot of examination of different mission statements and noticed some trends in what is said. So here I've highlighted some key terms, things like the growth of cultural community, promote participation in the arts, increasing support for artistic and cultural assets, integrating arts and culture into community life, distinguishing a space as an international tourist destination. We've got things like economic and social impacts, building a city driven by creativity, engaging in diverse arts and cultural experiences. We have, I'm sorry, I'm just like putting pictures of Urbana in between, so you're not totally bored by all the text. Just let me read and your eyes can kind of glaze over. But develop, preserving, protecting, and promoting arts and culture and heritage. Things like building visibility, funding audiences and partnerships. Of course, these things are very similar to our current mission. But thinking too about preservation of cultural aspects of a space, so it would mean us also taking stock of what are our sort of cultural assets in Urbana, and how would we want the arts and culture, program, if we had one, to really support efforts like those, and that could be through programming, through collaborations, through focus, through visibility. But we have things like performing and creative arts, celebrating cultural diversity, promoting arts learning, cultural planning, embracing equity and cultural diversity. So there's a lot of words that tend to repeat. We see, ethnic and cultural diversity. We see creativity. We see promoting sort of leadership in the arts, expanding the definition of the creative sectors that we look at. We already have quite an extensive definition of creative sectors, and what I love about our ordinance and mission with our program is that we absolutely not only say, oh, we believe in sort of diversity of arts sectors, but we actually go through the motions of naming a lot of those sectors. But this might be a very unique time, 10 years into the program, to also look at, like, are we leaving any sectors out? Are there any new and emergent sectors that have emerged even since that original mission statement was written? But thinking of things like developing community identity through the arts and culture. There's a lot of focus in these mission statements and visions that I found really try to think about a city's heritage, and so what are sort of the cultural assets of the city, both in past and then what are maybe some emerging communities, and that could be through immigration, through thinking about shifting and changing environments, shifting and changing businesses, and things. What are some of the emergent transformations in a city, and how might those be encapsulated in how we define, arts and culture? So there's a definition of culture, but I think both of the toolkits I'm going to talk about do emphasize the importance of coming up with a definition, because it is a vague term, and we talk about it as having, basically being a word that defines shared beliefs, rituals, values, kind of the value that we place on place itself and a given time or experience, the way people gather. So culture can mean a lot of things, and for a lot of these planning documents do suggest that the most important thing for us is to get really clear on what do we mean when we say arts or public art, and what do we mean when we say culture, and then use that as a jumping off point. And then there's some, different groups have different kind of guiding principles. This was one example, supporting creativity for the common good, engaging everyone in promoting cultural equity, building upon cultural memory, valuing heritage and rootedness in a place, committed to putting artists to work in public interests and free expression. And then I pulled together some examples of also programs that I tended to see in arts and culture departments in different cities. One that was very recurrent was a mayor's Arts and Culture Awards program, and it not only focused on the arts, but in arts and culture departments it also gave out some cultural awards, or recognized cultural work in the community. One thing that I was really excited about, because I love poetry, was seeing a poet laureate or a civic poet program in a lot of cities, and that is sort of a poet who's distinguished as the poet laureate for that year or maybe a 2-year period, and they do a series of activities that also help invigorate the art scene. Theater festivals, museum support. I saw things like a moving art center, which is actually quite similar to maybe some of the ways we've been talking about how the arts program could have more of a visibility if we had, for instance, more assets like a stage or something, and we can offer our stage out at different events. The moving art center was actually a mobile stage, and I'm forgetting which city that was in, but saw that. Learning lab or professional development for artists, which we've been talking about a bit on the commission, and also that's been a point that's been raised a lot with artists in the community. Nashville's got a really interesting restorative justice in the arts program, which was really about healing, issues around violence and other things through the arts and participation in the arts, which was really exciting. Creative Neighborhoods Murals program, which is actually when people in the community of Boulder say that they are going to offer up their house to become a canvas for an artist. Cultural space programs, which are either grants or programs that try to identify preservation of cultural spaces in the area. Of course, there's always calls for artists. Creative Arts Roster was a couple of communities had a roster where they kept tracking of a lot of local artists. 40 North does something sort of similar to this, right, by keeping a public, social media almost for artists and listing. And then work readiness programs came up a lot too. So when we're thinking about how do arts and culture meet the needs of a community, are we looking at things like employment, and how can the arts also help foster education and career readiness? So this is just an example of some of the things that these toolkits have. Checklists for, even asking questions of ourselves of like, how do we determine if we're community ready for a cultural planning? And so there's a series of questions here, and this is just one example of many things that are in these toolkits that I'll mention in a minute. I won't read this out, but I'm happy to share this with you all. And of course, it's going to be in here. Oh, and that's really it. So let me focus on these two things because I want to share these with you. And this is really just like to get our, juices flowing and thinking about what arts and culture may mean for our conversation next month as we start to think about these questions. When I was looking around, I found these two things to be really nice. So again, this is an arts and culture planning toolkit for communities, and it has and it was created through the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and it has a table of contents that includes, kind of an introduction to arts and culture, but then defining goals, defining arts and culture and community needs in your own community, and it gives you even suggestions of like metrics or how to really initiate a public input process. Planning for arts and culture, preparation, input, and assessment. And then it even has a number of case studies in here. One of the things that I did see as a trend is that a lot of the communities that I found to have an arts and culture program actually started out as a public arts program and then eventually moved to become an arts and culture program. Really seeing culture as inextricable from the arts, and something that can also invite deeper conversations about community building through the arts. So that was kind of exciting to see. One thing I will say about this, though, is even though I think it's really wonderful, I do think in many ways when I was reading it, and I'll be interested to hear what you think as well if you make time to read it, is the question of what really is culture in this toolkit. I didn't see, I kind of saw a real focus on arts and culture as if we're just still talking about arts. So I'd be really interested to talk with this commission about what does it mean when we actually meaningfully add the word culture in there, and like what does that change? This, on the other hand, is a culture planning toolkit, so it doesn't necessarily focus on the arts. However, all across it you'll see reference to the arts because culture becomes synonymous with the arts on the other hand very often. So this is actually from a Creative City Network of Canada, but this is a similar kind of structured planning toolkit that has assessment suggestions, questions that we should be asking ourselves. And when I didn't get a chance to read this one thoroughly. I did have a chance to read the majority of this one. So what I am going to do, because I fought with the printer quite a bit before we met today, is I'm going to send these out as PDFs. I was gonna try to bring you a spiral bound thing, but probably maybe you want to read them
No,
online
that's fine.
anyway,
No, that's
or on
fine.
your
Save
computer.
it- Save it free.
Yeah. So I'm going to send these out to you after today's meeting, and I don't know if you'll be able to find the time, but I think it would be valuable for us to all try to read these before our conversation next month. I would imagine they're very informative and might give us maybe just a sense of where do we go first in these kinds of conversations. So that's really it. I didn't have a whole lot for you today, but I wanted to kind of get the ball rolling and have us be thinking about these and talk to you about these two resources in particular. Any questions?
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, and then since you're still sitting there, why don't we take up the new business?
Right. Do you want me to share?
Sure.
Okay. So our new business is that our Commissioner, Jason Patterson, is going to not be renewing for this next year. His news is that he's moving Massachusetts,
I
right?
think that's right.
We think he's moving to Massachusetts. But one thing that, so that's going to leave a vacancy on our commission, number one. And I'm excited to report Sarah Jones is staying, Pat is
Yay.
staying, and will be continuing as chair. And I'm excited to have Eric staying as well. I think those were the other three that were up for renewal. So I'm excited that we'll continue to have all these great minds in the room as we think through this question of arts and culture. And I'll be looking to fill that vacancy and working with city staff and in collaboration to do that. Jason has a art exhibition that's going on from June 22nd to the 30th. He was unable to make it tonight, and it won't be in attendance at the July meeting. This would have been his last meeting. So we want to gather together with the commission to celebrate him. And because he's planning a move, he said that it might be wonderful if we came to his art show. So what I will do is after this meeting, I'll also get in touch with all of you to find a time where we can all go there together. But for anyone listening, Jason Patterson is also having an art show at Art Coop from June 22nd to the 30th. If you haven't seen his work, it's phenomenal. Apart from his years of support for the Public Arts Commission, he's a fantastic local artist that we will be losing to another city, and hopefully, you know, like many a person in Urbana, he'll boomerang back to Urbana at some point. But in the meantime, please go and visit him in his studio. And for all of us, we'll try to find a time where we can kind of gather together and thank him for his service.
And I was also going to mention, I do have a card if you'd like to sign it for him, so before you
Thank
leave
you.
today. Yeah,
And that's really the new business, I think.
that
So the
is.
exhibit's at the co-op, though. Besides his exhibit at the shop, at the store, it's all, or it's in, no, never mind. I just realized what
It's
you
at the
said.
Art Coop, yeah,
Art
Coop.
You said co-op, and I was like, well.
There is
it's got-
another exhibit up at
'cause
the
there is
co-op
a-
if you
there
haven't
is that
seen it.
little- Yeah,
And I'm trying to remember the two artists. I think Dino El Savaria is one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We should all go see all the art shows in downtown Urbana. There's many.
definitely. All
But
right.
that's the news.
Anybody else have any other announcements they want to make? In that case, I move we adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, we're done. Thank you.